Hey everyone, welcome to episode 125 of the Ceres podcast, hosted by me, Stelios, the founder and director of Ceres Pure Food Innovation. Today, I'm joined by Matthew Konen from Athena B near Brighton. Okay, so who do I need to talk to about it being April already? Come on, someone's having me on a little bit here. If you've been on our online store recently, you will notice the potato preparation is out of stock. This is because it's undergoing a little transformation, which we will be excited to show you all soon. We are making a list of everybody that's ordering it. We put it on a back order, and those that are interested, we're making a nice little list. They'll get it as soon as it's back in stock. The super absorbent cloths are now back in stock, but ignore the photos on our website because they are now blue. If you squint, just pretend they're blue. We are getting some new photography done once the new sort of potato prep's back in stock too. So, might as well spend the whole day taking photos. I'm being a bit lazy, I must admit. If you're on our mailing list, you would have got this month's offer code yesterday. To join our mailing list, just see the show notes link. Sign up, it only takes a minute. As many of you have noticed, we've started slotting these little adverts at the beginning of the podcast. We will never insert ads in the middle to break the conversation. Everyone in the food business is really busy, we know that. You also have to balance the need of making more profit by selling unique food to customers. In our view, you need to make profit when you're closed and sales when you're open. With all the increased prices at the moment, you'd be absolutely mental not to use up your fish trimmings. Let's think of butchers for a moment. They don't only sell fillet steak or ribeye, do they? They have multiple cuts. Then all the trimmings go into the sausages, or trimmings for pies, or mince. Think of how they turned low-value ingredient into 8, 10, 12, 14 pound a kilo, depending where you are. The Ceres fish cake mix is the solution to increasing your profits on your premium product of fish. Why give customers more than they deserve or throw your margins out? Why give them 9 ounce when you give them 8 to keep the price the same? It's a little stealth increase without anybody knowing. You can trim the fish to the perfect weight and size and not worry about what to do with all those trimmings. By making homemade fish cakes, you can increase your profits and sales at the same time. I know what you're thinking, well, I'll just use the potatoes or the chips that I have on site. The fact is, by the time we've even put them on to get them to the boil, you'd be finished using the Ceres fish cake mix. We have put together so many recipes to get you started. You'd be crazy not to increase loyalty and profits by serving homemade fish cakes, unique to your business. Increase your sales and profits today. Order the Ceres fish cake mix from worldofceres.com. Joining me on episode 125 is an avid listener and great guy all round, Matthew Konen. Matthew has been in the fish and chip industry since about 2018. I wanted to get Matthew on the podcast because I knew that he's had a lot of challenges turning this shop around. Although he works the business with his mother Mary, the business has changed so much since their time away from the fish and chip shop. On top of this, we all know that there are loads of challenges at the moment, whether it's COVID related, inflationary related, staffing, you name it. There's so many things. I wanted to really sit down and talk to Matthew about these things and see how they're going about these issues. I, for one, absolutely love how optimistic Matthew is. It doesn't diminish how hard things are at the moment, but we all do need to keep pushing through these hard times. One last thing. If you ever have any feedback for the Ceres podcast, or you'd like to suggest a guest, get in touch with me at any time on any of our social media platforms or email me on stelios@worldofceres.com. I, for one, absolutely love talking to Matthew. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did.
Hello,
Matthew.
Stelios.
Oh, Matthew, welcome to the podcast, mate.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Before we start, I do want to apologise.
Please. Please
Yes,
do.
I would like to apologise because I cannot guarantee that you will end up on a TED Talk or the Lex Friedman podcast. It's just not going to happen. I know that's some of the podcasts that we listen to. I don't listen to the TED Talks, but I listen to the Lex Friedman podcast.
Well, I need to apologise because I was only using you as a stepping stone. So now that I know that's not.
Should we just end this here?
Yeah, let's end this here.
We're 35 seconds in.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested since I've met you about. Well, number one, I'm really intrigued in how much you're on a journey. You've really tried to sort of learn. You don't stop learning. You're always in the groups asking lots of questions, answering lots of questions. But when I met you as well, you know, your shop's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. No one's is. But you know that, and you're trying to move towards something. So I was really interested first initially is how did you end up in the industry? So let's start there.
Well, so I was living in America. So my mum has had the shop since 1996. So I grew up in the shop. I had all my birthdays in the shop. I was just a typical. My mom's from Sudan, but also like sort of part Greek. I think we've talked about that before. And she,
although you never cleared anything up for me, it was just
I know, it's even more confusing than usual, isn't it? No, she, she was just that sort of old generation of just work hard, and she had basically just family working in the shop. Her brother, her sister, and they just worked like dog hard when I was a kid. And that's just how they ran the shop. We actually moved to America when I was probably like 13, 14. So I'd peeled a bit of spuds and did a bit of like work in the back. But other than that, I didn't really have any experience. Then around 13, 14, we moved to America, and my mum leased the shop. We came back. I must have been about 26, 27. So this is about 12 years. We had a bit of a legal battle. So the people that we leased it out to, there was sort of issues in getting it back. So it's probably 15 years later we finally get the shop back. It wasn't my plan to run the shop or do anything, but my mum was like, "Could you help me for just like a month?"
How it always starts, man.
I just need a hand with like wrapping up chips just until I find some good stuff. And I was like, yeah, Mum, sure, of course. I thought I was gonna move back to England, maybe get some work in the field that I was working in before, and I'd sort of go from there. And one thing led to another, and so it's probably been around like three and a half ish years. And
so whereabouts in America were you?
I was in Arizona for like 7 years. I went to high school out there. Zero fish and chips out there. So if anyone's thinking about opening a chip shop there, you'll have no competition. And then I went to LA for like another 3 years. I said, if there's sunshine, I'm going. Yeah. Get me to the sunniest place known to man. I didn't think it was possible to get enough sunshine.
So your plan initially wasn't to come back to the UK anyway. It was just to
I knew eventually I'd probably come back, and I knew eventually I'd probably have to help my mum out with the business just to sort of like, get her like standing up to her. The shop was like raging back in its heyday, in the 90s. It was just one of the most popular shops in the place. But I knew it'd take some building back up to get there. But yeah, I thought I'd move back to England, and I'd had enough of America, and I just wanted to like come back, be with some of my old friends here, be near my mum and dad to help them, and just do my own thing.
What sort of work were you doing in America?
I was doing I was a financial advisor for quite a while. So I did like quite an intense internship. Then I sort of I got really like sick of the sort of 9 to 5 wearing a suit and tie thing. I got into bartending, and I went to school for business. So I just thought I would get into sort of finances or marketing or something business related, but I didn't think I'd actually run a business with my mum. It just wasn't at the foreground of my mind, or whatever you'd say.
No.
So
where does the name Athena B come from?
Yeah, so I stole it off a guy called Nick Demarakis.
I knew you were going to get
Bexhill.
So yeah, you didn't even think to call it Athena 2. Like,
yeah, I went to B. No, there's. Do you know what? I've had people since he opened ask me like, "Do you guys have another shop in Bexhill?" And we're like, "No, what are you on about?" And then this is how narcissistic I am, Stelios. I go, "Oh, someone must have named it after my shop." So just to give a bit of background to everyone, my shop was named by someone that my mum called her uncle. It was a guy called Hambis. He's a Greek guy. He was not my uncle. I thought for the longest time he was my uncle, and I learned when I was like 16. I was like, this guy wasn't even my uncle. What? He was like so nice to me. He bought me ice creams. It's just some Greek guy that my family was friends with, and that's just kind of how Greek people are. They're just like, this is your uncle now. I'm like, okay. He bought the shop with a wonderful guy named Adamos, and who recently sadly passed. He has a shop down in Chichester. Had a shop down in Chichester. And they called it Athena B because there was a ship that crashed on the beaches of Brighton in 1980, and it was called Athena B. And so they named it after that, kind of tied into the hype. It was a massive, massive ordeal back then. Like, people were coming from all over the country to look at this ship that washed on the beach of Brighton, massive ship. And he thought it'd be cool to sort of capitalize on the buzz that was going on, and named it Athena B.
Nice.
And then, yeah, it wasn't until I met Nick through you, and I realized that that other chip shop that people have been asking me about was in fact his.
It's really weird, isn't it? Because I get, after we did an article with you, just like a bit of a spotlight, the amount of people that messaged me saying, has Nick opened another shop? And I was like, well, what about this? And I was like, no, Nick's not opened another shop. And they're like, yeah, but why would someone like not so far away call the shop after? I was like, look, they're just two independent people. And then it's really weird because you two actually have a lot in similarities as well.
Yeah, a lot,
you know, so you don't know each other, but you know lots of people that know each other. So it's really weird.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a weird one. Yeah.
So, in your mind, how long have you been involved with Athena B now, would you say?
I'd say sort of, it must have been 2018, beginning of, I think so.
So about 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you've sort of not only been thrown in the deep end because you're working with your mum, and, you know, we love Married to Bits, but obviously working in a family business can have its own pressures, you know. And so what would you say were your biggest challenges? Let's say you're like, you know, just whether it's working with your mum.
I'll tell you what the biggest challenge is my mum. I'll tell you what. So I'll sort of preface this for whoever's listening is, so
just to warn you, she's probably going to be listening to this.
No. I've told her beforehand. I was like, Mom, I'm going to tell them about everything. She's like, don't you dare. I'm like, Mom, I can't know. She's like, okay. So in case you hear me do this weird Chewbacca voice, that's my mom. I swear she's a lovely woman and I love her, but that is how she sounds. Stelios, I think you rang me. I think I must have posted something in the groups, and I was buying a lot of your products after doing some NFFF trainings, and I think we worked with some of your stuff, and I was like, this is like unbelievable. And just also the trainer that I had, Chem, who you've had on the podcast, he is just unbelievably helpful and just a wizard at what he does. I trained with him and David Miller. I did 2 NFFF trainings, and they're just super helpful, and just seeing, you know, how much better their product was. I'd switch batter immediately. I know this. You didn't bring me on here to, you know, toot your horn, but it really did make a huge difference. I mean, I remember, you know, my mum. I told you she was sort of old fashioned. She was like, "We need to make the batter thick so that the fish looks big." And I was like, "Oh no." And when I saw, like, you know, crispy light batter, it really, I don't know. It makes a huge difference. And so. I must have been using your products. I think I posted on one of the groups or whatever. I'm a really, you know, small shop at this point, and it's not like I'm massive now, but you know, we've grown it a little bit. And I think I had like a question about it, and then you messaged me directly, and then you were like, "Oh, do you know what? Why don't you just pop me a number? I'll give you a quick call." And I was like, "What? Why would it?" Like, I'm used to dealing with these, like, you know, big merchants that just don't really care. You know, they really, you know, they don't know your name. They don't. And you're spending like 20 minutes on the phone with me, you know, answering my questions about, you know, how to properly make the batter and, like, you know, the flow rate, consistency, keeping it at a cold temperature. You're answering my question. I'm like, this guy's a gold mine. What is going on? And I mean, it was impressive to me because, I mean, you know, for anyone to take that much time out, it would be like if I spent 20 minutes with my customer listening to their problems just so they could buy fish and chips. I was like, this guy is either insane or he really cares about his products. And so I realised it's actually a little bit of both. And
now you've got to know me.
No, I've got to know you more on the insane side, but you do care. And so at some point we got chatting a lot, and I tried everything in your product pantry and loved every single bit of it. You were like, do you know what? I'll pop down and for a visit. You tend to visit a lot of people that you work closely with, and so you come down. I thought we were going to talk about fish and chips. We ended up talking about everything else under the sun, all of our random interests, and then unfortunately you met my mum, which is my biggest challenge in the shop.
It wasn't unfortunate at all. It was very fortunate.
No, I'll tell you what. She's been calling you. First of all, she's been calling you Sirius. She thinks that's your name for the longest time. And she's like, "Oh, when's Sirius come down?" I'm like, "Oh, I think Wednesday's popping in for a visit." And so finally, you come down. She's the thing about my mum, which is fantastic, is she's of that old school generation, but she's brutally honest. Brutally honest.
I didn't notice.
Yes. So Stelia's come. Well, maybe you thought she was blowing smoke up your behind, but at least now you know she was telling the truth. Because I'll tell the people what happened. So he comes in. Stelius walks in, and she's going, "Oh, I love this, I love that. You know, your curry sauce is amazing, whatever." And I don't know if you were like, "Oh, maybe she's just being nice, whatever." But he goes, "Oh, right. So what else have you tried?" And I was like, "Oh, we tried the fish cake mix. We make our own fish cakes now. Yeah, brilliant. We did the pan cleaner, wonderful." And I wish we just skipped over it. I think you must have gone like, "Oh, did you try the mushy pea seasoning? You guys do your own mushy peas?"
I think I saw her in the sink washing the peas.
Oh yeah, that was it. You guys, oh, you use the mushy pea seasoning. My mum just jumped down your throat. My mum, by the way, has spent the past like 20 minutes just going, "I love this, I love that. Oh my god, your curry sauce is perfect. Oh, it's amazing." The second he mentioned the mushy pea seasoning, she was like, "What were you even thinking? This is the worst thing in the whole wide world. It tastes weird." Mind you, my mum, the mushy pea seasoning is like what? Salt, sugar, a bit of.
Basically, it's seasonings with a natural colouring.
Yeah, with a natural colouring. Just so everyone knows, my mum puts the exact same thing in her peas. I have no idea what she was thinking or what happened, but she was like, "This is the worst thing. It tastes weird." And
I was genuinely perplexed. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. But it sort of reforms everything in your mind, because you can walk into a shop and think, "Oh, they must love everything," and that makes you it can make anybody naturally a bit lazy. Whereas you sort of know with Mary that actually she is just being honest, and she's going to tell you when it's great, but she's also going to tell you when it's shit. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. A lot, and I know we joke about it, and I did joke about at Christmas putting a tub of pea seasoning and wrapping it up and sending it out, but I didn't fancy getting hunted down on Boxing Day.
Wait, angry Arab woman. No,
you can go to shops sometimes anywhere, restaurant shops, and no one wants to tell you the bad news. And I know it's out of politeness, but actually, I'd rather just know what people are thinking, because you can't help if you don't know.
Oh, unfortunately, I mean, do you know what my mum is great for? Is if you get her so she does all the ordering, and I'll tell you why. Someone comes in, and so we get our pies from a local bakery, and the pies come in, and they're like a little bit burnt. The crusts are a little bit off, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, mate, they don't look they don't look the best this week. Do you reckon like maybe next week you can have a word with the baker or whatever?" My mum waltzes in, she goes, "Are you crazy? You think we're gonna sell these pies? I can't feed them to the dogs." And she will just chew this poor delivery driver out for even thinking about. They're terrified of her. They come in, they have this like weird, like she's like a mob mafia boss. They come in, she's like, "Have a Coca-Cola, like please come." But if they
she's like trying to get them into that. They're like, "No, this is a trap." Like, don't do it, John. Don't do it.
Make sure your pies are good before you go in.
No, but in all fairness, like without the accent, I got a friend of mine that's exactly the same. If what is ordered is bang on, he's really happy with it. But if something is ordered is not, like friend or no friend, he's going to tell you they're shit. And I think I don't know. Your mum's got a business to run, and so is my friend. There's so many people like that, and I think I do get it. But I think I've always said loyalty sort of has to go in a certain way. So your loyalty at Athena B isn't to me. It's never to me. And I make this clear. my loyalty is to you. So I need to make sure that the curry you buy, the gravy you buy, everything, other than the pea seasoning, obviously, because that's not allowed in the shop. But everything else needs to be, as right as it should be. Yeah. Mm. And if it's not, you shouldn't apologize to me. I should apologize to you. Right. Right. And then if your meal is bad to your customer, that's your focus. It should be that way. Yes. And I think everyone should be customer focused. Yes. One thing I don't do is I don't expect customers to be loyal to me because they like me. There's no point. And I've got customers that buy off me and they don't like me, and that's fine too. I just think that if everyone's customer focused, then that everything works itself out. You should have loyalty to suppliers as long as the supplier keeps doing what you need, which is great product. So if the pies do come burnt, I don't think anybody should be offended. I think they should understand, 1 minute, the pies are burnt. No one wants burnt pies.
I think it's quite a typically English thing, if I'm honest. We're very, so I've noticed, I lived in America for, 10 years, and they can be a bit more disagreeable. If there's an issue, they'll say it, and in Arab culture, they're a bit more disagreeable. If there's an issue, they'll say it. But generally, you think, living in England, it's like, if there's a problem with something, the people won't necessarily complain. I've been out with mates and they've had their food come out of a restaurant. They're like, "Oh, this is disgusting. I don't know why." And then the server comes by. It's like, "Any problems?" "Oh, lovely, mate. It was delicious." And they're like, "Oh, never going there again." I'm like, "Why didn't you just tell the?" But then I would probably do that too. I'm like, "Why didn't you just tell the waiter that it was horrible?" But that's just sort of our sort of way here, and it's tough because as someone who's trying to make a product for a consumer, you kind of have to second guess, are they just being polite or do they really not like it? So
it's true. We say, "Oh, but we asked them. We asked them," and well, they all said it was great. The minute they all walked out, they were puking. But you saying that reminds me. We was in London once for the Fish and Chip Awards, and there was me, Nick Damarakis was with us that year. And a mate called Fred, and we went for breakfast. We couldn't go to breakfast where Fred usually likes to go. I was starving. I was going to be filming that day anyway. I was going for a blogging phase, which didn't last as long as the podcasting phase. 5 years in. So, and then we all eat. I'm famished, And now, though, to be fair, now I can do intermittent fasting and all that. But then I just knew this was going to be a long day, and I was hungry. So Nick's now, when he's listening to this, going to be laughing because I ate it all. Yeah, them two said the breakfast was terrible. Yeah, and now even still have this going joke that I, will eat anything, which, in fairness, is mostly true. So the waiter comes over and says, "Was your breakfast okay?" Fred sort of mutters something, basically just didn't want to answer. Nick says that the funniest comment, I remember it till the day I die. He says, "The Diet Coke was great, mate." Yeah. Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, it was great. And look, I'm not fussy. I've got to eat. I'm going to be on my feet all day. I'm probably going to eat till tonight. And I didn't eat till 9:00 that night, So, but it was just interesting how, we are all like that. We're all that same. It's the Britishness. I think that we've all become polite and won't say anything. And I think this is where we're at. It's so to relate that to fish and chip industry to some degree, you see it in the groups where people say, "Oh, well, I put my prices up yesterday. No one said anything."
No one said
anything. I'm like, yeah, of course they're not saying anything. They're British customers. Now, if the customers were like Pete, my dad, or Mary, your mum, they would walk in and be like, "What is this? I'm not paying £10 for that." But this is where this is different. This is I try and think of ethnics. Ethnics are very quick to notice any price discrepancy.
Yes.
They are going to lay into you regardless. British people, and I'm one because I'm born over here. I'll just look at the price and be like, whatever, keep my mouth shut, don't say anything. And or if we go out and the food's crap again, I'll just eat and I probably won't go back. I won't complain. I don't want to ruin anybody's night. I'll just be like, let's just not come back here. Do
you know, I had something interesting happen on Mother's Day, and it really put into perspective, sort of because you were saying about prices and stuff. I went to this Japanese restaurant, took my mum and my girlfriend out for Mother's Day, and I went there, and the prices were just it was just absolutely astronomical, right? It was like 70. Well, 17 quid for a main course. It was so I got say chicken katsu curry with rice, and I ordered some what's that type of those tempura. I got asparagus tempura, right, for 8 quid. And I was literally sat there for half an hour going I was like, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely insane. When they brought the asparagus tempura, mind you, my girlfriend picked this restaurant, so I was saying none of it, but I was thinking all of it because I was like, she was like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Oh, this is wonderful. I love it here," So I was trying to keep everyone happy, but in my head, I was like, "It's ridiculous pricing," and it really put me on the other fence of going to a place with high pricing because I know this is what everyone's worried about right now. And so I'm sat there for like 30 minutes before the food gets there, kind of just like fuming about how high this thing's priced. They bring out this vegetable tempura, and I'm about to like kick off. It's like 7 sticks of asparagus. I'm like, this is incredible. How is this even possible? And then right after they bring out my katsu curry, so I've probably spent like nearly 30 quid on these 2 dishes, and actually it was the best food I've had in ages. It was delicious, and I was so hungry. I was fuming about the prices. Everything changed when I had this. I would probably compare the batter on this katsu curry to Siri's batter. No, I'm just kidding. It was that good, but it was just really phenomenal. And then I kind of just like by the end of it, I was singing their praises. I was just like, "Oh, this is unbelievable."
They converted you.
Yeah, they convert me. I didn't care about the £30. This was like one of the, and it was like arranged with care, a bit of parsley on the katsu curry. It looked really like it stood out. It was dished really well, and I was like, the price thing. It isn't the price that people are like sort of balking at. It's the perceived value for money, right? So if I get bog standard fish and chips and it's like £10. Then I'm a bit upset. But if I get what I deem to be like the best fish and chips I've ever tasted ever, then for £10, I'm sure I'm sure no one would care. That's how I felt getting this Japanese food. I was like all upset about the price until I tasted how wonderful it was. But then it made me realize, wow, if we're going to be charging more, we really have to make sure that every single dish that comes out is amazing.
It's interesting you say that because a friend of mine has been saying for a while now, if fish and chips does hit the prices that it's probably going to hit, I don't want to put a figure because everyone's different, but if it does, then you're not going to be able to get away with mediocre fish and chips anymore.
Yeah.
People are going to be coming in, and let's just say for argument's sake, they come in regular fish and chips, 12 quid, go outside and it's that they're not going to do it. Now, if they went outside and it was bang on, crispy, perfect, maybe a wedge of lemon, bit of tartar sauce, whatever it is that they like, the chips were bang on, then they're going to walk out and be like, that was great.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, they're going to turn, aren't they? They're going to be converted. Whereas if it is just fish and chips were all right, that's okay when it's a £5 or £6, £7.
Yeah.
But when it starts becoming double digits and they get mediocre fish and chips, is that enough to cut the mustard? And I don't know if it is. So what's your thoughts on sort of a lot of the media stories about fish and chips being more expensive then?
Well, we were talking a bit about it earlier. We were saying that back in the day. So just to tie a bit back in is, we came into the business after 15 years, and my mum, who had run it 15 years ago, was sort of still running it in that same sort of style where it was, everything was sort of wrapped in. There's nothing wrong with it, wrapped in paper, put in a plastic bag, but it was kind of like it was sort of that sort of value for money thing, and the whole thing was, you could serve 15, 20 years ago, you could serve something that wasn't necessarily amazing, and you get queues out the door, and that is what she experienced 15, 20 years ago. We come back to the business and the whole world has changed. Everything is on its head. People's expectations of quality are completely different. They've improved tremendously since she's been in business. And so, and I don't think the prices necessarily kept up with that increase in quality. So, or increase in desired quality, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So as for the prices in these news articles about being £10 or whatever, it's like, as long as people are keeping up to date with how high the quality needs to be, and that's something I'm even, obviously still working on and trying to improve. And I think everyone is. I mean, even I'm sure, the number one fish and chip shop is always looking for ways that he or she can operate in a way that brings the best product. As long as they're doing that, I think, they'll probably be fine. But, if it's something like my mum, when we came back, and she just didn't really understand, like, oh no, the quality needs to be top notch. It needs to be like next level for it to even not even flourish, but even for a business today to just survive. She was just astounded at how much higher the threshold was.
Yeah. And I think that's because fish and chips is going for a transformation of being, and I think it still is the every person's food, and it's still great value for money. And it's still, even after everything comes out the wash, it's still going to be the best value in my mind, because it's real food. That's the thing that it's hard to compete against.
Yeah,
there's nowhere to hide with fish and chips. It's a fillet of fish with potatoes. Whereas, with, I don't know, I don't want to be knocking other foods, but Chinese wet foods, like your wet sauces with a bit of protein in it, well, you've got a lot of sauce to carry through there. Same with the Indian food. Well, again, the Indian wet food, a curry will have, let's say, I don't know, 4 ounces of chicken in it, for argument's sake, and then the rest of it is a sea of sauce. So you can carry that. Whereas fish and chips, there's nowhere to really hide behind that. And so I think that in my mind,
like I said earlier, making a thicker batter to get the fish bigger does not work.
Well,
Believe me, we got a lot of bad reviews in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that's, I see a lot of people that try to do that, and they're like, oh, give them a thick batter, and customers will think, well, that's a big piece of fish. And they will think that until they open it and they see one slither of fish in there, and actually the batter's like dough. So for us, we're quite different to a lot of like other sort of manufacturers, I guess, because we recommend a thinner batter always. We always have. And we just think that if you sell great fish, the sales will follow.
And I think there's, for me, I went to the NFFF and I realized the way I was cutting fish was actually really detrimental for me. It was I was cutting it sort of straight on without an edge to it. So essentially I was cutting fillets that looked tiny, and I was paying the price in that, people really eat with their eyes, and you can cut a 6 ounce fish to look like the size of your hand, or you can cut a 6 ounce fish to look like the size of your forearm. You know what I mean? You can really change the perspective of a piece of fish. So I think investing in that kind of thing, learning from people on how to make your food appear better. BioBoxes for me, I use BioBox, and I found that the way they, how do I put it? They funnel sort of, they funnel down. And when you put a 10 ounce portion of chips in a BioBox, that looks a lot bigger than if you put 10 ounces in, say, a corrugated box, for me personally. So in that way, I'm not trying to cheat the customer. If they ask me, how much is your portion of chips, I'll tell them 10 ounces. But I get a lot less complaints with the type of packaging that makes the product appear bigger. It
makes sense. Either way, you're not going blind. You're still measuring or weighing or whatever it is that you're doing. But I do think I like BioBoxes. I'm not 100% of all of their credentials, but I like the fact that it absorbs all the moisture, keeps the product really hot. I think on those credentials alone, they're a great product. Whether they're bio or not is a different story.
I've heard about that,
Well, it's not just that. The fact is, any packaging in the industry that's had food in it cannot go to landfill, and it cannot be recycled. So guess where it's going? It's going to an incinerator. That's the truth. Whether it's polystyrene, whether it's corrugated, whether it's BioBox. So if anything, the BioBox would be good in an incinerator, because that's what they use. Well, they used to use in like Malaysia and everything. They used to use that to actually fuel incinerators. Bagasse. They used to make bagasse blocks. And that's what
is that how you say it? I've been saying bagasse like an idiot for ages.
Mate, I wouldn't trust my wording. Okay. After a podcast, I usually get about 3 texts saying that's not how you say such a word. So I wouldn't. I'd probably lean towards your wording.
It sounds a bit more posh, doesn't it? Bagasse.
Bagasse, yeah. So, I think it would work. So, but for me, although not as good for fish and chips, I'd say corrugated is great, because a customer, if it didn't go to incinerator, they could just cut it up and put it in with the bin, and it would go mushy probably before it leaves the house. So, but I do think there is no such thing as the perfect packaging anyway. I just think you can't call something bio or this or that when really it's tenuous at best. But I just think actually on the credits alone that it actually keeps the food really warm, absorbs the steam. Those credits alone,
Well, we have a tiny shop, so the fact that it's stackable. I mean, we tried corrugated boxes, and just having massive stacked of boxes in the back that are constantly toppling over of corrugated boxes was a nightmare for us. So when we switched to bio and you could just stack them on top of each other, it was a lifesaver. Yeah.
One thing I want to pass out with you, in one of your emails or texts before, you weren't sure if fish and chips was sexy enough to make it through the sort of next phase of what's going on in the world. Go on.
I was just going to say that basically, I think from what I've sort of seen is that London and Brighton is sort of like a smaller. I'm down in Brighton, and Brighton is sort of like a smaller microcosm of everything that's sort of happening in London. And it seems to me, because I've been away for 10, 15 years, and it seems to me that everything that was sort of happening in London 15 years ago is slowly now taking place everywhere. And it sort of seems that like London and therefore Brighton are kind of canary in the coal mines of the way everything's going. So when I was growing up, there was, one McDonald's, and most of the people didn't mind going to the local chip shop, and you go to McDonald's as a treat. But now there's loads of takeaways, loads of big chains, loads of options, and just being your bog standard fish and chip shop that, sells all the, there's nothing wrong with it. But what I'm saying is just being the sort of bog standard, we just sell down here. It would be like cod haddock, cod roe, pucker pies, and some sausages. And just doing that, I feel like that is going to just die out. Because if they can get it from you, then they can get it from the next one down the street. Yeah. And if it's not new and exciting and capturing those customers, there's so many restaurants, there's so many takeaways, there's so many new American wing and burger joints. They are going to take your customers. It's way more exciting. It's way more interesting. So for me, it's sort of like saying, I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but like, I'm sure back in the day, there was loads of like grocery shops that were like, there won't be big Tesco's and Sainsbury's everywhere. The local grocer will stay strong, but that's just not the case. Now it's just Tesco's and Sainsbury's and, Co-op and Morrison's. And I think that's probably going to happen to fish and chips, and it will just be the best operators and big chains.
Yeah, I guess where I lean on this a little bit is, so for example, I was looking at LinkedIn earlier, and I saw a guy that owns a burger company, and and he was saying that a few years ago he didn't have a company, and now he sells 30 million pounds worth of burgers a year, dollars, Australian dollars, which sounds a lot and probably is a lot. I don't know what the conversion rate is. Probably not.
It's not a tenner. It's not a tenner. It'll be in the millions.
Yeah. So he does really well, basically. And one thing he said is, because I think one of the biggest things that is great for me or his business is that all his food is really Instagrammable.
Yeah.
And that made me think, like, fish and chips really, is it Instagrammable? It's golden. It's golden. It's beigey. Maybe if you throw a pot of curry in there, which is more brown, some peas are green, maybe some ketchup. Like, you're dealing with a lot of flat colours, let's say. And so the only way that, and this is where I think we've also got the messaging wrong for fish and chips. Fish and chips, everyone's trying to push it down it's great for your route. I think that's wrong. Yeah. I think we should be pushing it down the indulgence route. Mm-hmm. It's indulgence. You can eat it on the beach. You can eat it on a winter's day, whatever, you name it. Well, tell me what other meal. Like, you wouldn't go to the beach and be like, oh, fancy a curry. Like, you just wouldn't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I can understand how, on a Friday night at home, you may fancy a curry. Right. But nothing actually hits the spot like fish and chips all the time. Yeah. And ain't that amazing as a product? So in some ways, we're deeper than Instagram. I do think so, because I think that it is the guilty pleasure. We should be aiming for that. We shouldn't be trying to say, oh, did you know that this portion of fish and chips is X amount of calories? No, like, no one cares. Like, they're already in the shop. Like, and I was sort of thinking about, like, remember a few years ago, McDonald's had this real big push on salads. Yeah. So all the adverts were salad. Yeah. And you go to the restaurant and be like, Yeah, I'm having a Big Mac.
Yeah.
So, and I think even they realise that, by pushing health in a certain way, people just carried on buying burgers.
Yeah.
And I think, you know what? The reason why sort of McDonald's has probably got healthier and blander, I would argue, over the years, is because it has gone away from being a treat to a regular food. And I think that's just a sign of the times. And I think fish and chips should carry on being great, not healthy. And I don't think it's unhealthy either, just to clarify.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's not terrifically unhealthy.
It is what it is. Like, and we're not bogging it down with high sugar laden sauces and highly salty toppings or whatever. It's just fish and chips. It's honest, it's open, you know where you stand. But in my mind, if we're going to be promoting anything, it's just, I don't know, like just that self-gratification. You've had a long week, get yourself some fish and chips. Don't, you're going to the beach, fish and chips, or whatever it is.
So what would you think about having like the calories listed? So we do like, say, a light bite meal. Mm-hmm. Would you think, maybe, get the calories done for that and have that? But go on. Yeah.
So we used to have a service that used to do the calorie counting, and you'd send us the product, we'd send it away to get mashed down, and they'd give you a report.
Yeah.
And look, if you really want to know it, that's fine. I just don't know if I see the benefit. Unless you're told to do it. But I wouldn't. I just think in my mind, a consumer feels that it's light when you call something a light bite, shall I say, by actually not feeling heavy and bogged down.
Yes.
By attaching a calorie count to it, you're now almost voluntarily saying, hey, healthy people, come here. Yeah. And you're always going to lose. Right. And fish and chips is very high in fat, protein, and carbohydrates. So you've got a third of each, let's say, roughly, to some degree. Mm-hmm. Whereas you put a donut next to it. It's only 99 calories, or a Kit Kat, which they famously say is 99 calories, because sugar has like 9 times less calorie count than fat. Yeah. So what's going to win all day long? So then you're pitching yourself against really indulgent things like, I don't know, like going to creams or something. It's like, why would I go fish and chips when I can have ice cream and a waffle? And, or, if you're an Arab, baklava, like, what I mean? So you could sort of see how once you start pitching it as healthy, you're going down a slippery slope, in my view. Yeah. But I'm not saying we're unhealthy either. We're just neutral. It's just an enjoyable meal. Eat it as part of a balanced diet like everything else.
Yes.
It's great.
My girlfriend's, quite health conscious. And when I say health conscious, her main interest is, are these whole foods? I mean, am I getting a bunch of preservatives and colorings or whatever? Or is this like a proper... And, she, before meeting me, I don't think thought twice about fish and chips. And I'm not saying she eats fish and chips every day, but she was so surprised at just how, what's the word? Unprocessed fish and chips is. It's, there's nothing... we're not tempering with the fish. We're not, if I'm buying your batter, there's certainly nothing, grubby in the batter. So it's like, and it's good, clean oil. When you think about it, it's just potatoes, oil. There's no E numbers. There's no additives, preservatives. So for her, she was surprised. She's like, this is actually not that bad for you. In terms of fat content, it is a high fat dish. But it's not designed to be eaten every day for, twice a day. I mean, I certainly think, it's nice when I see customers multiple times a week. But if they're coming in every day, I'll be like, mate, you got a problem. But I think you'd feel that way if you had a salad bar and someone only ate salads, you'd be like, you probably need some carbs or something. You're going to die, mate. So
I think one of the things that the problem with I guess maybe the Western world would say is that, snacking is a big thing. So people are eating the wrong sort of calories all throughout the day. Whereas, you can imagine years ago when someone just had, I don't know, I'm going to typecast every British person now, but they woke up and had their English breakfast and then they had their ham and cheese sandwich and their fish and chips for tea. I know I've just typecasted everybody, sorry. But you can imagine how those 3 solid meals a day would have kept people going. Whereas now it's like 6 or 7 snacks constant. And also they're calorie dense as well. So, but I think just to square that off, I think in my mind, we should be the indulgence, the guilty secret, the things that people fancy, not oh, I'm eating it because it's healthy. Well, that's delusional, because it's not, and too much of anything is not healthy. I could eat broccoli every day that's boiled and it's not healthy, although I wouldn't. So, but yeah, I think it's just, for me.
So would you think, okay, so you think, because we've spoken about this before, you think, fish and chips should be a volume business.
Yes.
And that this is something I agree with you, that in general, you want, even though you're saying, it should be indulgent and luxury and a treat, it is also, annoyingly, a lot better if you have loads of people coming in and out of the shop and buying your fish and chips. And the reasons that you listed for that, and correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm missing anything, but essentially it keeps your oils better.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go through?
Oh, so right. So if we just to square this up a little bit so people can understand that the backdrop of it, if the industry body says, for example, have the highest margin you can get away with, GP, and watch yourself, this is going to be a tough time, and that's a fair comment.
Yeah.
But if they're not also taking into consideration what somebody's GP already is, what their portion sizes already are, what areas they're in, it's easy saying, yes, just be 85%, take $3,000 a week. That's fine. I'm of the opinion that I would rather have a shop taking 15 grand a week, for argument's sake, and have my margins at somewhere like 60%, for argument's sake. Yeah, because I'm of the opinion that when you have a busy site with lots of footfall, because of all our standing costs and procedures. So, for example, gas is always on, electric's always on. You've got 4 staff on just standing there waiting to serve customers. Your oil is sitting there at 180 degrees. That oil is getting worse by the minute. For every minute that something's not passing through it, it's actually getting worse. Because although oil degradation happens when you're frying food, it also happens when you're not frying food. So I'd rather be doing it by frying food, because then at least I'm losing 10% on my oil and 10% of oil with my chips and 20% with my fish, rather than it just sitting there at the same level getting worse, So, and also one thing to note is that it doesn't cost you any more to serve another customer when you have all of those fixed costs.
Yeah.
So if you have, I don't know, in a 1 hour slot, if you have gas, electric, and 3 staff to think about, and then your time, well, if you served an extra 2 customers in that hour, did it cost you anything?
Right.
No, it didn't. The fact is, everything then just became cheaper, So in my mind, people forget the ratio of, high GP can essentially give you a low net profit, and it is a balance, it's a tightrope, because how do you, swing it? So I'm not suggesting I know all the answers, but what I'm saying is that fish and chips has traditionally been a volume business.
Yeah.
And I think if we're all honest, I think everybody would prefer the footfall.
Completely. I think so. Overall, I think we completely agree. I think the only pushback I have, which I think is, it's no small thing.
How dare you come on the Sarah's podcast with pushback?
I take after my mom, don't I? First it was the mushy pea seasoning, and then me disagree with you. I think it's very easy to say I would much rather have a high volume business and a lower profit margin. I think the biggest thing that a lot of owners struggle with is getting people in the door. And if we all knew how to do that, we would all operate, lower profit margins and higher turnover of product. But I think it's, my only pushback is, yes, ideally we would all want to have that, but I just don't think it's as easy as that, or for a lot of people, it's trying to figure out logistically how to grow the business to the point where it's high footfall and high turnover. That is just so much more of a nightmare than just being like, oh, I'll just raise my prices. So it is a harder thing to achieve and the better thing to achieve, but you're right, it probably is the right thing to achieve, but it's extremely hard. I certainly haven't gotten to the point where I want to be, and that's not for want of trying. I'm constantly trying to market my shop and stuff, but it's probably the most difficult aspect of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's good pushback. And I think, and that is why you've almost got to take the free market approach. You need to look at what's going on around you, and then those prices are massively important because, if everybody else is, I don't know, £8 and you're £6, then, you've got a bit of wiggle room there, why not bring it up a little bit and, loosen the belt? But at the same time, you've got to say to yourself, what are their prices right? What if they're not? Chatting to one of my customers today in Leicester, he showed me his prices and then shows me 6 other prices of shops around him. And he's like, still, they're giving more and they're still £1 less than me. So he's sort of exposed a little bit. And you think, so, I think there's a lot to look at. There's no right answer, but there's lots of wrong answers. And I think, and I think if people can sort of keep that, keep the product right, keep marketing it right. And obviously marketing today is a lot harder than it's harder and easier in different ways. I remember when I first started working with my dad, if you wanted to put, an advert in the paper, that is all you had. That was the only option.
Yeah.
There was MySpace, but no one really did business on MySpace. Now you've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You've got a lot of these platforms. No one puts adverts in the local paper as much. They may do to sort of like attract the grey pound a little bit more, but for the most part, you're not using that as your daily driver. And it's usually all online stuff. So if I said to my dad 20 years ago, "Hey, Dad, let's get a photographer to come in and take some photos," he'd probably think, "Are you mental?" Whereas now, look at the photography you're doing, because you have to make sure that the food looks appealing. And, if people are buying with their eyes online, you can't just have a photo of someone's that you nicked off Google Images. You've got to have,
I'll tell you, my one of the first couple of weeks that we took the shop back and we started, I've told, I've said it, that my mum's like done things very old fashioned way. And so she had ordered what she thought were chicken nuggets, right? And they ended up delivering boxes of chicken steaks, kind of like what you put in like a chicken burger kind of thing. Just a bit of a random product to have. I told her, "Oh, just return it, ask for your money back." And she's like, no. She's like, "I'm a businesswoman. I will make a profit out of this." So I went away to I think to do like a workout or something. And I came back to the shop, and on the A board outside, so it's a chalkboard too. And we have chalk. I don't know why she didn't just write it on there, but I found a bit of wrapping paper, like the paper you'd wrap fish and chips in. And bless her. Okay, English isn't her first language. I'm not giving out about this, but she spelled 2 chicken steak and chips for like £2.50, written in pen, like a biro pen, and chicken was misspelled. And again, I love my mum, but it dawned on me, like, this is the kind of thing that would have flown back then. Like in the 90s, people would have seen that and been like, "Oh, that's a good bargain," and come in. But now you look at it and it's almost like sad. I ripped the sign down. I was like, "Mum, no, we'll sell them some other way. Don't worry." But it's just like the things that were okay back then, or the things that you could have done, just popping a help wanted sign if you're trying to hire staff. That's what I was like, "We need to hire more staff." My mom was like, "Oh, just put a help wanted sign." I got like 3. I got 3 people, and they were like all the wrong candidates. It's just, everything is harder. You've got to think outside the box for everything.
I remember when, I think about 2001-ish, I must have been working with that for a year or something, maybe 2 years. And he was like, "Oh, we need staff. Just get a piece of wrapping paper or whatever, and just get like a permanent marker, and just write staff wanted to stick it in the window." And I was like, no, we'll do this properly. I went to the printers, got a proper one done, like laminated it. Mate, they probably still take the piss out of me now for it. Yeah. And like, honestly, like, they're like, "Oh, look at him, thinks it's posh." I was like, no, like he goes, "Oh, but it cost like £5." I was like, yeah, if you've been using it for years, like, I'm not being funny. Like, but like, I think because there is wrapping paper doesn't mean you need to use it for everything. So it is interesting. But again, I think that's moved. That's not attractive to people. Hiring good people. I'm not being funny, and I don't want to take the piss here, but unless you're really desperate as someone who's looking for work, you're not going to walk past a chip shop that says staff wanted on wrapping paper, unless you're genuinely desperate and think that's going to be a great job.
Completely.
And I think, I'm going to want to see something that tells me a little bit about the pay, the role. I'm going to want to see, people have choice now. No one is forced to work, so, if people have choice, and I've always said, you need to treat people like they're volunteers that get paid, and you want them to work with you.
Exactly.
So how do you do that if if you've just got like, literally you just put a piece of paper in the window that says staff wanted with a big pen.
That's completely. I think we were talking about this before, and I think people think that to run a good fish and chip shop, I've just got to be really good at making fish and chips, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. Because I feel like you have to learn how to be good at every aspect of your business, and if you don't treat hiring employees as its own separate aspect of your business that you can get good at, then you're just completely going to fail. Like, I think I've been for those listening, I've been absolutely banging on about this book to you for I don't know, probably 6 months. But I was visiting my girlfriend's family in Ireland, and I picked up one of the books that was on her mum's shelf, and it was Setting Up and Managing Your Own Coffee Bar by John Richardson and Hugo Martin. I recommend it to everyone, and the reason is I have nothing to do with a cafe or coffee bar, but the advice inside of it is applicable to every business, and it completely changed my perspective on everything. I literally was, the type of person to put a help wanted sign, and I was like, oh, why aren't people coming in? Like, what else can I do? And it just didn't occur to me that, if you're trying to market to your customers and you're thinking, okay, what do my customers want? They want, really good fish and chips at a reasonable price. They want it to be delivered to their house, or maybe get on one of their aggregates or set up delivery for myself. They want me to be open at these times, and really trying to get into the mind of the customer. Then why aren't you trying to get into the mind of the employees that you're trying to hire? Yeah. I mean, these are people that you're trying to target, the same as your customers. And as soon as I sort of got that idea, I was like, oh, I'm getting no interest because I've created no buzz around this whole this position. So what I ended up doing was I took if anyone has any interest in photography, it's so helpful, or even just has like a nice iPhone or something, it's so helpful for every business, because I took some nice photos of a couple of my staff members just smiling, holding baskets of chips or whatever.
That's forced them to smile.
Oh, mate, I paid them a lot, didn't I? I was like, come on, just smile once, please. Give me 20 quid. And I posted that on the local Facebook group, and just sort of, included a bit of like fun, interesting description of the stuff you'd be doing, and listed some perks, some things that we do. We take them out for for bowling every now and then. When we won an award, we take them out. We get to do like pizza nights, things like that. And people, for the most part, I found that the majority of people or employees, I hire a lot of young employees, they really don't care about the pay. They're not that motivated by the pay, because they don't have a huge amount of expenses. They're not, if you're hiring a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old, for the most part, they're living with their parents, and they're not worried about, paying the gas and electricity bill. They're worried about, is this going to be rewarding in the right ways? And by that, I mean,
can they make a difference?
Can they make a difference? It makes so much, it's a big deal for this generation. For them to feel like they're part of something bigger. When we won an award, and when it was just a small local award, and we're trying for other awards and things like that. The fact that we're as a team going for stuff and having regular meetings as a team and doing team building activities and things like that, it means way more than giving them an extra 50p. And I'm not saying I underpay my staff. I pay them more than the minimum wage. I pay them, I think, roughly about £1 more than minimum wage. But the point is, it's to the point now where I haven't advertised for staff in about 6 months, just because one of them tells their mates, and all their mates want to be part of this team. It sounds like a lot of fun. Friday nights I might, there's a shop near us that does American sweets. I get us all like a big bunch of American sweets before the Friday night shift. They all bring stuff in. I've been getting fat because we've got a nice employee, a young girl who bakes us cookies every Friday. I'm like, it's just such a cohesive team. And when they tell their mates about how much fun it is working at the chip shop, then all their mates want to join in. And if they're mates, they're usually cut from the same cloth, and they're hard workers, good people as well. So I know a lot of people have been struggling to get employees and struggling, how do I, it really takes just one or two good employees, and you can really build off of that.
It strikes me though, and I'm not just saying this because you're on here and I've met you obviously wants. And, you sound to many like a very energetic, highly motivated person. And that is infectious. When you pass that on to people, they think, oh, 1 minute, he's happy here. I'll be happy there.
Yeah.
And I think half the time when I see people are like, oh, can't find staff. Why?
Yeah.
Well, I hate this job. Well, what? And you can see that sense of frustration. If that's being passed down the line, you have to work in that environment.
Completely.
And I do think if you are a stressed manager or leader or worried, and look, these are all natural emotions. If you're stressed and worried, there's a lot going on. But it's almost like you have to fake it a bit, because that will be, that is infectious. I'll give you an example. I've got a 7-year-old boy, and he's stubborn as anything. I don't know where he gets it from. Yeah, because I'm not like that at all. And definitely the wife's fault. But at night, he doesn't want to sleep. Yeah. So I read him a story, and then we get ready for sleep. And do you know what I do? I yawn.
Yeah.
And once I yawn, he starts yawning.
Yeah.
I don't engage with him. I just yawn a few times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And before you know it, he's off to sleep, because yawning is infectious. And I think, so is misery, so is happiness. Whatever you do, that other person that comes in direct contact with you is going to be picking up on that. Yeah. And I think and I'm not mocking people, because I know what the stresses are like. I know what it's like when you can't pay the bills. I know. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm still better off than many. I've been privileged in some ways too, but I still know what it's like when you've got a company that is taking the toll out on you. So I know the stresses, but I think the overall key message is, if you are feeling like that, you need to pick yourself up somehow, because you can't get staff to feel that emotion all the time. They're going to go somewhere where, like what you're saying, where it's fun, where you feel cohesive, where you're part of a team, where the boss is having a laugh. And yes, all those stresses exist. Don't get me wrong, but you know what? Stress and cake makes you feel better, doesn't it? Stress and But I think one other thing as well is that I think that staff, you've seen a lot of leaders talk about this now. Staff are more important than customers, because with good staff you can impress customers. With bad staff, it's an uphill battle. If your staff feel neglected or stressed or tired or don't want to be there, then that's only going to pass off to to the people they're touching, which is customers. So if customers are then walking in and be like, oh, you're all right. Can I have a bag of chips, please? Oh, okay. Oh, Matthew wants chips. So the next thing you know, it's like that, it's passed on, isn't it? Whereas if you're like, hi, how you doing? Like, it is faking it a bit. And I know there's some days you just don't want to get out of bed, because that's business, but you have to push through,
I think also, it is, so not everyone, that you hire is going to be amazing at, frying and customer service and cleaning at the end of the night. So if you sort of break it down into like, okay, are they good with customers? Are they good at cooking the food, or are they good at cleaning up at the end of the night? Usually, my staff are actually pretty good, but usually they'll be weaker on one of those aspects. But typically, the people that are good with people, I'll tend to sort of push towards the service counter. The ones that are, a little bit more quiet, a little more introverted, I'll tend to push towards doing the appetizer pan, the frying pan. And you can put people in positions that work well for them. And I think that's probably, good management as well, and not expecting every single person to be amazing up front or to be as enthusiastic as you would want them to be, but also give them the training, like have them come into the shop and order their food and be a really bad employee, be that sort of like, what would you like to order? And just have them get a feel of what that feels like being on the other side and how it sort of puts you off coming there. So yeah.
On a counterpoint of that is I don't think McDonald's, and I've got to probably say in every episode that McDonald's is great somehow, but I don't think they get enough credit to what they do with the workforce. When I was in the fish and chip shops, every staff member we had took naturally, they just left, come from McDonald's. You were amazed how good they were. Yeah. I mean, we loved it, but they were amazing. Like I remember one of them, Kim, I might have mentioned it before on the podcast. I don't see her anymore, but she's lovely. She's like, first shift, like we didn't show her anything other than how to serve. And then it was a Friday tea time. We threw her in the deep end. And then 7:30, 8 o'clock, she just walks out on her own. Didn't even say anything. Gets a bowl of water, hot soap water, comes back, starts cleaning down all the section. Brilliant. Me and my brother's just staring at each other thinking, I was like, Kim, what are you doing? She goes, And she just said something like that's stuck in my mind ever since. And it was, and now I know where it comes from. She goes, if there's time to lean, there's time to clean. And she literally just started cleaning everything. Like, she goes, I can't just stand around and do nothing. She goes, what is that? She goes, if we're quiet, we better start cleaning, ready for the next rush. And I was like, have you got any friends? So, but no, and when I was chatting to a friend of mine, we're not best mates or anything, but she owns quite a few McDonald's franchises. And she was saying they just don't get enough credit because she goes, the kids that come through can't use a mop, can't use a broom. They don't know how to interact with people because they live on Instagram, and literally they spend the next 2 years from 16 to 18 training them just to be ready for the workforce, And she said, and that is so true. Like, they don't get enough credit because, you see in our industry where people are, 16-year-old came and she couldn't even make tea. And I'm like, well, did you show her? And I know you shouldn't have to. It's not your job, but it is your job.
Yes.
Like, it is, because you're trying to make your job easier. So if you try to do that by making your job easier, happy days. So
I think it also is a sort of attitude thing. Because essentially, if you can get the people that have no idea, like you said, how to make a cup of tea, no idea how to mop a floor. But if they've got the right attitude to learn it, I'll spend as much time as I need to training this person up. If I know that they're going to be, I have an employee, I mentioned her earlier, Charlotte, she's brilliant. She asked me, I'd say the first 2 weeks of her training, I put her with a trainer, right? So I put her with someone that had been there a little bit longer. She still managed to ask me, I'd say upwards of maybe 500 questions that in the first 2 weeks. She wanted to know every little detail of everything. She was driving me insane. I can say that now because I love her. She is so on top of it and knows exactly, she can read my mind. She, if someone knew, she now trains people that come in because if I'm looking at something, she knows exactly, Matt wants it to be like this, this, and this. And she's just got the right attitude, But then conversely, there are people that come in and they've asked me 500 questions and they've learned none of it and it just hasn't stuck. And so I think that's important too. I think people are quick to hire and not so quick to fire. I noticed this myself. I would keep staff on that were just way past their sell-by date. I mean, people that have obviously shown no interest in learning. They really don't care. They're slowing everyone down. And it kind of goes back to sort of the overly politeness thing that we were talking about earlier. I just felt too bad getting rid of them or even giving them warnings. So now I give warnings a lot quicker. I give written warnings a lot quicker. And the truth is I've gotten rid of a few people. It's not nice, especially at that age. And I try and warn people. I try and tell them and stuff. But the truth is, if they are bringing the team down, then you're only hurting yourself. And if you're stressing about, I have to be there tonight because so-and-so is there and they're not the best at packing, they're going to make mistakes or they're going to do this, that, the other, then you're paying someone to alleviate that stress from you so you don't have to be there constantly. Or that's sort of my end goal. Yeah. I don't want to be at my business for every single hour that I'm open. I care deeply and passionately, but this should be ultimately something that is serving me to be able to give me the freedom to go out and enjoy my life.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm not trying to create a job for myself.
No. I think one of the things, a friend of mine rang me yesterday, it was a customer friend, and he said one of his staff says to another member of staff, why are you doing all these hours? You're just paying more tax.
Yeah.
And he goes, what would you do about that? And I said, I'd probably start phasing that person out because they're not a team player. They're just not. Yeah. If they're putting other people down and saying, just working more, you're paying more tax. Well, then she's the one with the wrong attitude, isn't
Completely.
it?
Completely.
And, he's of the opinion of you. I don't want to be the shop dictating to me my life. I want a business, not a job. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget. They do every single hour going because I get it. They're trying to rack up the numbers so they can save money. But actually, that probably makes you worse for it in some ways. One thing I wanted to touch on with you, Brighton, you mentioned earlier, is quite... what was it? It's almost like a little bit like London almost. It's very out there and ahead. Yeah. You've probably got a younger market, more modern. How have you tried to keep up with that? You've moved away from your thick batter and so on. You knew that wasn't going to work. Yeah. How have you tried to, what things have you done to try and, keep up with that pace?
Yeah. So luckily I'm pretty much my own target market, which, is extremely helpful. I'm 30 years old. What am I? I'm 29. I'm turning 30 in May. And I am, I have a partner and, I eat out a lot, I get a lot of meals takeaway at restaurants, and I know what a lot of people are eating because I'm also at these places and I'm communicating with people my age that are sort of in the main demographic of people that are getting takeaways. And the majority of people are going to these new burger. I know in Brighton we have loads of burger and wing shops that I mentioned earlier. There's a place in Kemptown close by that does these they call them sexy sandwiches, and they do like loaded chips, and everything's just sort of like, it's what you'd expect from a British sandwich shop, but just posh, nicer. Say it does, a ploughman's sandwich, it would do it on focaccia bread with like some, farm raised cheddar, whatever. The point is, it's a little bit more expensive, but a lot nicer of a product. And that's essentially what I realized that most people are going for. They want something that's sort of A, new and exciting, and B, just a bit better than what they're expecting from a chip shop. So for us, that means, making sure that we really our potatoes are pristine. We, DI them. Everything needs to look, like you said, Instagrammable, just absolutely gorgeous. When they open that box, it needs to be really presentable. We get our own boxes made up so that it has the Athena B logo on them. And if we're doing the bio boxes, we actually use you to make our stickers, and we have branding on the Athena B on the boxes. We have our own Athena B bags made up. Everything is sort of tied together, and it sort of creates this. I know it sounds a bit just over the top, but an experience of eating the food. You're not just taking it out of a plastic bag and unwrapping it out of paper, but everything. I mean, the person that I had graphic design the bags on the sides, on the gussets of the bag, she kind of used, we have an anchor in our logo, and she used the anchor to kind of replicate fish scales. And it's like little things like that. It's like the current generation, they really pay attention to detail. They really want quality, and they really pay attention to detail. We've also done a bunch of specials because I think a lot of people in chip shops, they sort of think, I can only really add things on a menu permanently. That's how I feel. Every chip shop I've gone into, it's just like, it's one of those like illuminated box menus, and you need those stickers to change the menu. And if you're going to put it on, you're going to put it on permanently. And so we've got a chalkboard, and now we do specials, and we've started doing loaded chips. So these sell like crazy. We call them Hove actually, which is like an inside joke down here. So if someone says, "Oh, are you from Brighton?" Hove is sort of the really posh area, and you go, "Oh, I'm from Hove actually." And so it's just a way of saying, "Oh, they're a bit posh, these chips."
Yeah.
So we do chips with lemon truffle aioli, which is just garlic mayo with a bit of truffle oil and lemon juice, and a bit of Parmesan. It doesn't cost us that much more than cheesy chips, and we sell it for quite a bit more, and it's amazing profit. Frickles, like I said, again, these sort of like American dinery things that are becoming really popular, American burger shop things, fried pickles that, like, I'm sure loads of places do them, but we serve them in a nice box. We do like a little pot of dipping sauce to go with it, and they fly off the shelves, and they're really good profit. So, just trying to have something that people get excited about. We do a vegan menu, so we've done our own tofish, so tofu fish. My mum makes these vegan fish cakes using the fish cake mix. She'll chop up smoked tofu, and she'll mix it with miso paste and the Ceres fish cake mix. Sells like crazy. So just all these little things that we can appeal to a sort of modern market that are, if they're health conscious, or should I say like maybe moral conscious. We sell like maybe 15% of our sales is vegan, so it's not something that's going away.
So one thing I wanted to talk about, and you've just brought it up nicely, is the vegan side.
Yeah.
In my mind, is vegan limiting? And I'll tell you why. The wording. I don't like anything with a V, because I think in marketing they say anything with a V makes people think of, I don't have to say the word because I'll figure it out anyway. But a true vegan customer, are they interested in your fish and chip shop? And to anybody listening, any fish and chip shop. And I'll tell you why. My analogy is this. Is a true vegan through and through, would they go to a butcher's that also sells vegetables? And I think the answer is no. And I don't know if you agree or disagree.
So really good point. So there's a there's a Brighton Facebook group, the Brighton Vegan Facebook group. And
that sounds very niche.
yeah. But there has been absolute drama and pandemonium. There's been I think it's the first ever vegan-only chip shop that opened up in Brighton. It's a really cool place. It's called. I probably shouldn't plug them, but I'm gonna plug them. It's called No Catch, and they're in Brighton. And it's a smart name. I like it, No Catch, because there's no catch, as in, you know, there's no. You get the point. And when that opened, a lot of people who had been coming to us went and tried them. We retained some of them. Some of the customers, they took some of it. It happens. And a lot of debate ended up happening on this group. When I say a lot, it was like one post, but it was a big deal for me. It kept me up at night. But a lot of people were saying like, oh, well, if you're supporting this shop that also sells fish, then, you know, you're not a true vegan.
Yeah.
And some people were like, oh yeah, we would only shop at this vegan only place because, but the thing is, I know a lot of people that were saying we'd only shop at No Catch. They came and bought from me. I recognize their names. They've like posted about me. So I think given no choice, and I think there aren't that many vegan only chip shops. Most vegans are quite happy to. We cooked all of our vegan stuff separately. We still do. And we really tried to emphasize, look, we think vegan is probably the future of humanity, you know, whether that's for good or for bad, that's, you know, people's own personal opinion. But in general, I think, you know, if you fast forward like 200, 300 years, we're all probably going to be, a lot more of us are going to be vegan.
I'm just glad I won't be there for that. Where I'm leaning towards is if you was to say, I look at Burger King a few years ago. Burger King were ahead of the game and said, we're bringing out a plant-based, and they used the words plant-based, not vegan, a plant-based burger. Yeah. And there was a bit of uproar. Oh, it's not even vegan. And they said, no, it's not meant to be. It's cooked on the same grills. Yeah. And they were saying it's for people with flexible diets or just people that just didn't want to eat meat every day.
Yes.
And the way they saw it is if someone ate a burger once a week, they might go another time to have a veggie one or plant-based, shall we say. So recently it came to my attention that a shop that I know does really well with plant-based, let's say. He's doing, I think, plant-based, and he just fries it in the normal pan. And he says all the ingredients are plant-based, but we cook it the same way as everything else. So he actually says we cook it the same way as everything else, you know? He's saying what he's seen is, though, that it actually isn't the die-hard vegans that are eating it because they're not going in anyway.
Yes.
It's the people that just don't want to eat meat every day or fish and chips. You know, they just want something that makes them feel better. And I think that is probably where it's at. And I was thinking, so if you could do plant, would you, if you ever had your time again, and it's not that far away because it's only a sign change, would you be inclined to change it towards more plant-based than vegan because it's less militant? Maybe vegan is a very militant word, and also you only need to give a vegan one opportunity to tell you that they're vegan, and they will tell you. So if you can get rid of the word vegan as well, that saves you a lot of time, doesn't it?
Do you know what, I actually was stupid enough to ask this question on the Facebook group. I've done a lot of stupid things in my life, but this is probably the dumbest one. I said on my own like Athena B profile, I posted in the group, like, would you guys mind if it was cooked in the same oil as fish? Biggest mistake.
Did Facebook nearly crash?
Oh my God.
Well, the point is, though, and what you've got to, and I might be wrong here, but I've always found that the people with the loudest voices don't actually use you. They are influential on Facebook because they're quick to get in there, or Twitter. If I always use this as an analogy. It doesn't tell you which way I'm leaning, but it's an analogy nonetheless. When Trump won, no one thought he was going to win because all the people shouting on Twitter were the most vocal, and in this instance, left-leaning. And then the same with Brexit. When Brexit was happening, everyone thought there's no way Brexit's going to happen because look at Twitter. Everyone's screaming. And what happens? Both of those things happen. And it's because I think now what you've got in business, and this is the other difficult thing on top of the British squeamishness to not complain, is that there is a subset that scream the loudest, and that skews the attention. It makes you think, wow, they said no. They must mean no.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas you look at their photos and think, well, I'm going to see when they come in the shop next. Never, 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 never.
Completely.
And I think what they would really want you to do, if they're honest, and they're not really honest that much, is that they want you to get rid of fish and just be vegan only.
Yeah.
Whereas I think truly, if you were to look at that data set, come back to you, you'd be like, well, actually, and I think Burger King did get it right. I think they figured out that actually what was bigger than veganism was flexible diets.
Yes.
And I think, you go to Burger King, you've had a burger. Like, don't you? It's not like going to McDonald's where you can sort of walk out of there normally. Like, you go to Burger King and you're sort of walking out a bit funny, aren't you? You're carrying a few extra kilos, let's face it. So I think they probably thought, well, we're the Yorkie of the burgers,
Right.
You've had one,
Yeah.
So they probably saw benefit in doing a plant-based burger, So I don't know. I just think the people that scream the loudest on the social media groups doesn't give you a true representation because they just want what they want.
So this is a brilliant point, and if I'm remembering this correctly, it proves your point exactly. I then put a if my first post wasn't stupid enough, I then did a what's it called, a poll, and I said, do you I would never eat this. This is not vegan if it's cooked in the same fryer as fish. B, and I worded it horribly. I said, I'd be happy to eat it if it's cooked in the same fryer. And then I put, I'm not that fussy, implying that the first people were fussy. Again, they took my head off for that. And I can't remember the third option. But I think, if I remember it correctly, the majority of people commenting were these sort of militant, like, that's not vegan. Like, oh, how dare you even, call us whatever it was, fussy. But I think, if I remember correctly, the people that actually voted, most of them were like, I'm not that fussed, but I would maybe prefer it to be cooked separately. Yeah. And that's kind of what I thought. And, they're right. I probably shouldn't have worded that. And, if that's their beliefs and how they feel, it's not fussy. But the truth is, for us, the way we had it set up, it's actually not that hard for us to separate the two. And we wanted to give it the best shot of succeeding. So we do separate the two. But I do get what you're saying in that we're not going to get the diehard vegans. We never will, because part of them is going to feel bad. I mean, they might feel good about supporting a small local business, but part of them is also going to feel bad about supporting a business that, massacres these thousands of fish and blah, blah, blah. So, and it is something to think about. It's not some like... I
just think from a logical point of view, if I was vegan, I got run over by a bus and decided to become vegan, I think... Sorry, not to denigrate anyone. I'm just thinking silly.
It cut out of my headphone and then it came through. I was like, that's genius.
But no, joking aside, like, if I was a vegan and I was weighing up all my moral options and ethical options, I would be going all the way in. I wouldn't be wearing, leather. I wouldn't be doing these things. I would be going through a list of my life. And I think this is what most decent vegans are doing. As militant as they might be, that's just a different opinion to us. They feel strongly about something. I think they'd be going down with a list of paper, a pen of paper, and saying, this all needs to change. And it's not just food. It's the way I live. It's the way I eat. It's the way I dress. All of those things. And I think once you do that, whether it's a cost benefit analysis, SWOT, whatever, it's pen and paper. They've made those decisions. They're going to say, well, you know what? As much as I like the guys at Athena B, X Fish and Chip Shop, Y Chippy, they're going to say, well, they sell dead animals. They sell, and their wording, flesh.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to support it, because whether they like you or not, they're just not going to support it. I spoke to farmers. I spoke to butchers. I spoke to a butcher, probably like, I don't know, number 7 or 8 in the podcast series, and he said it was definitely season 1, episode 8 or something like that. I'll find out. And he said, he's at a party, and he says, you see people siding up to you, and he's like, he knows what they are straight away. He knows that they're coming in for an argument. He goes, he's seen it a million times. And then someone will go up to him and go, all right, so you sell dead bodies, do you? Like flesh.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to go. And they're like, no, let's talk about this. You're a butcher. You kill animals. And he's like, well, I don't kill animals. I sell dead animals. So I think that person who is that passionate about something, and let's use those words to be polite, who's that passionate, and that's fair, they are not going to, for whatever reason, going to be like, yeah, you know what? Matt's a great guy. I don't care that he cooks chips with fish or sausages. Not interested. He's a good guy. I'm going to get a bag of chips. No, it's not going to happen. The first thing, and I remember I liken it to Muslims that used to come in the shop back in the day. They'd be like, do you cook chips with sausage? I'm like, maybe. I'm not going to say no, but maybe we do. Yeah. And they're like, I said, look, the best thing is just don't come. Like, I don't want to offend you. I don't want to risk it. Sometimes we do, sometimes I don't want to tell you. We guarantee you that nothing meaty or porky has touched the chips. And they're like, no, we want to guarantee. I says, you're not going to get one. You're better off just not eating here. Yeah. And I think, trying to do everything for everyone, does that become a bit tricky? Whereas plant-based brings you back in line, and you can say, if there was a bit of all our ingredients are plant-based, even the oil is plant-based, but you know what? A sneaky sausage went through the same oil. Sorry, but it's still 99.99% plant-based.
And that's probably where the majority of people are going to have to end up anyways. Like I'm saying, veganism, from what I understand, is growing and growing, and people are eating more and more plant-based. They're trying to, be a bit more conscious and whatever. And I do think overall it is a good thing. I try and, I do try and eat a bit less meat every now and then, but I do enjoy steak. I do enjoy meat. But I do also try and eat some plant-based food throughout the week. I think where it's going to end up is that sort of middle ground where it's like, look, we can't, if you want, vegan only, absolutely vegan, then you're going to have to go somewhere else. You'll have to go to those specialty shops. But I think the majority of people that do, if they do transition, they're not going to be these militant types. They're not going to be these overarching, just like everything has to be cooked separately types. They are going to be a bit more forgiving, and they're probably going to be like, look, I was eating sausages 2 years ago. It's not going to kill me if the chips I eat, were cooked in the same fryer. And that's what we found is the majority of people are like that. But I think what is nice about having a shop that offers both is I get a lot of orders that have both, meat products and vegan stuff. And you think, oh, well, what's my competitive advantage if this vegan only place has opened up? It's like, well, if just the daughter's vegan and the rest of the family is, meat eaters, and they're ordering on Deliveroo, then we cater perfectly to those people. And that's the majority of people. It's not, every person of every family that are vegan.
No, I agree. And I think, I do think this, and that's why I think the benefit is being more, to just square this one off, is I think that way you say plant-based, you're not, you put a little disclaimer there saying, look, sometimes things will get mixed up, but our aim is this. And I think that way you're not cheeking anybody, you're not cheating them, shall I say, you're not being cheeky. Yes. You're just trying to support as many people as you can through that one menu. One thing that has impressed me, and we're going to start wrapping this one up, but one thing is your photography. I really am impressed with it. I don't know. I think you said somewhere on the groups that you bought a cheap used camera, but were you using a phone in the end, or?
Yeah, I mean, I bought a DSLR and I just YouTubed a bunch of videos on how to photograph food. And it really is, if anyone is, listening to this and they, it's like £200 for a DSLR. You get a 50mm lens, which I know I'm sounding like I'm like some wizard, but I promise you, I literally just have bought the two things and pointed and shot at stuff. You can get a little bit more fancy and watch some videos on how to do it, but the impact that food photography has made on my business, the fact that I'm not forking out like hundreds of pounds to get really decent photography of my own food, it just changed everything. If I have a new special, I can promote it on the local Facebook groups, on our social media, by just getting it takes me 30 minutes to just get a nice setup, sprinkle a bit of salt, bit of parsley on the plate, and it really does look really good. So I know you're quite into food photography. You were taking some. I've still used a lot of your pictures that you took down. If you can't get a DSLR, invite Stelios down, and he'll take photos of your food, and that'll be your ticket out of there.
Well, I think for me, I'm a big proponent of what you've just said. With a newish Android phone or iPhone, you can take very nice photos. But actually, and also again, the value in used cameras now. It's mental. Yeah. I was looking at a camera yesterday. When I first started photography, I wanted a certain camera. It was like $4,000. Yeah. And yesterday I was looking at it and it was like 400 quid used. Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously there's been a lot of new technology, but it's still a good camera. It's amazing camera. Yeah. But actually what's more, in my mind, I think I might have mentioned this to you back then, what's more important in photography isn't the camera. It's actually the lighting. It's your backdrops. It's having a consistent look. if it changes all the time, and a lot of shops will just take a photo on the wrapping paper or on the top of a chest fridge or freezer. It doesn't look right to the customer. And again, all this competition, burgers, very photogenic, Chinese food, very photogenic. How do you make your food stand out? You have managed to get the composition right. And I like it. I like it a lot. And I think especially in a world where people are doing online ordering, deliveries, and I think years ago, I remember Gordon Ramsay saying, it was years ago now, and I used to watch Nightmares, and he said, if a menu's got photos on it, it's shit, walk out. And I think he was right then, because photos were shit. Yeah. But now when I saw, I can't help but think that when I went through your photos the other day, I thought, well, you know what? Even with the actually Hove chips, all of them, I thought, everything looked really nice. And I thought, that is going to make me want to spend more money on your website. And that's my, so well done there. I just wanted to pick up on that.
Thanks. No, I do. I mean, I think again, if you're someone that, isn't around someone that's, say 20 to 35, everyone or 20 to 40 say, we're all on Deliveroo, we're all looking at photos of food, we're all on Instagram looking at photos of food. So, maybe I feel bad for people like my mum, who never would have assumed that this kind of stuff was so important. It's, unless you're like inside the head of your target market. I just happen to be lucky that I am my target market, and I know how important it is for me. So that's why I take so much pictures. Yeah.
On one last note, have you noticed that you've only just started click and collect, haven't you?
Yes.
And whereas everybody else was pretty early to this, COVID early, shall I say? How have you managed to prioritize online orders, deliveries?
This is what I've been doing. So what I've been doing is because I'm trying to convert everyone to click and collect. It is a godsend, right? Because essentially you're taking someone off the till. So say on a busy Friday night, this is obvious. I don't need to say any of this, but you're taking someone that could be taking orders for people in the shop, off of the phone and taking orders. It speeds everything up. People are a lot more happy with the service because they come in, they pay or they've already paid, and they just grab their bag and go. It's a brilliant idea. Unfortunately, like you said, we missed the boat. So what I've been doing is I've been getting my mum on the phone, which is genius. She will just shy of not take their order, try and get them to go and click and collect. Like, hiya, can I take an order? We have this new click and collect. Oh yeah, well, I'm in the car. I just really want to just make an order. Well, you really should go on our click and collect. Like, I will take the order, but really, it's a very nice website. Like, my mum is pushing every angle.
Yeah.
So
people are coming away with this thinking that your mum is Omid Jalali. You know this, right? Yeah. She's.
It's not far off. No, I'm joking. She honestly, do you know what? I really respect that generation and that their mindset. She could sell. I don't know what the phrase is, honey to bees or whatever it is, but she's just so
sand
good
to the Arabs and ice to the Eskimos.
Exactly. She's just absolutely amazing with talking. So most of the time we're just putting her up front and she'll just talk. She'll give out lollipops. I have a video on my Instagram of her. She somehow got a group of customers to dance to YMCA, and she is out there just like clapping and dancing along on like a Wednesday night. She's just like Instagram gold. Like, if you could just get my mom in every shop, like, she will sell everything in there. So that's what they're good at, all that stuff. But in terms of click and collect, what was the question? How do you
prioritize with walk-ins and deliveries? Because you do deliveries as well for other platforms, don't you?
So
do you get customers that that walk in and be like, oh bloody hell, someone else is in front of me? Like, how does that work? Or is it not really been? Yeah, okay.
Well, it has been an issue. We've been waiting for we use a certain card company. I won't say which, but they have been setting up the online ordering platform, and so right now we only take payment upon arrival. So that has been annoying because people that if there's a queue on a Friday night, people are like, oh, we ordered click and collect. Do we have to queue up just to pay? And I'm like, well, unfortunately, at the minute. So if people are thinking about setting up, I'd definitely say try and get it with someone that you can have them, have a what's it called, online merchant solution or whatever. But in general, people are pretty understanding, and they wait their turn and things like that. I know I have heard about some people, like customers get wound up, like if you give out too many Deliveroo orders, they think you're prioritizing the Deliveroo thing. So that's kind of a fine balance as well. Like, they're like, oh, all you guys are doing are just prioritizing Deliveroo drive. I'm like, these are people at the end of these, these are customers too. But so it is a tough balance.
I've always wondered why why you can't, not just you, but everyone that's doing delivery and all this lot, why haven't they just got to come out the back door? Like, you know, because that way they're not seeing anything. And like, way the customer that's in the shop feels like they've got your 100% attention. I was, you know, over COVID, we've seen lots of photos about staff, not staff, but these third-party collectors that for Just Eat and all that lot at McDonald's. And I think there was one where there was guys scratching his foot, like, you know, and it went viral. And what McDonald's have done now, I'm not sure how far along they are, but in most new sites, they have a little room with, like, you know, the McDonald's style sofas, whatever, style seats here. Yeah. And a little room, it's heated, it's dry, and I think the drivers can get a discount on the food as well. But they have like a bagging area where basically they'll just say, I've got their own screen, it'll say number 38. They know that that's your order, Matt. So they'll go up and get it, and off they go. And where do they end up going back to? McDonald's, because they get a discount. It's nice and warm. They've got the TV on, and it's also genius, customers can't see them. Yeah. So customers don't think, oh, I've been waiting here for 4 minutes, and that guy's just gone and got the order and gone. That could have been my burger. Yeah. No, it wasn't. Yeah. And I think that's you know. So this way, the customers still feel like they're valued, and you know, and the other food's just gone out the side door without. Yeah. No, and I do wonder if that's something, you know.
This is what I'm saying. I think our industry probably you've probably been ahead of the curve on a lot of things, but again, stealing ideas from the big boys is just like I don't know why more people don't do it.
I'm purely, the perception is that I'm ahead of the curve. Whatever I talk about has no risks and also no gain. I just talk about it. You guys are the ones that have to implement it.
Yeah,
you know. So,
but the thing is, if a multi-billion-dollar company is putting that and installing that in their shops, I guarantee you they've done a bit of research. They're not just doing it to see if it'll work. You know.
Oh, look! How many people say, you know, we do the labels that you you sort of seal the top of the bags with. Yes, and someone says to me, oh, it's a waste of money, I won't do that. McDonald's do that. Yes. There's a reason why. Someone says, well, I'll just use Staples. No, you can't use Staples. It's food, you know. And, you know, and yet we've just got those long labels. You cover the top. No one can get their hand in. Yeah. And you think, well, you know, if they do it, there's a reason. Yeah. McDonald's won't spend an extra penny that they don't need to. Yeah. But if it works, they'll do it. And that's what I love about McDonald's. They won't spend money willy-nilly, but if they figure out a system that works, that's it. So that's why I always say, let's just copy those guys for a bit. Let's just see what they're doing. Like, because they've thought it through. They've got lawyers, they've got marketing teams, they've got, you name it, operational directors, everything. So why are we then there trying to like rack our brains? And it's like, no, let's just do that.
Completely. I think even going back to what you were saying about hiring McDonald's staff. I recently hired my current fryer, brilliant girl. Her name's Luminita. She's fantastic. She came from Five Guys. And quite similarly, they have the systems in place at Five Guys are just unbelievable. I mean, this girl does not stop working, and she's probably given me a good 3-4 ideas of like, well, why don't you do it like this? Well, at Five Guys they do it like that. And just seeing how these people operate in these big shops where they're just doing such volume, it's like there's some genius ideas on the table. And you know, I know a lot of people go out and they do NFFF trainings and stuff, which I think is great. I did 2 of them, and they might go shadow at a big shop. But I think you're right. I think a lot of this stuff that they're doing at McDonald's or Five Guys or whatever, it translates over to us. So why aren't we going out and, you know, I mean, maybe we can't go in there and shadow, but we can certainly read up on it and see what they're doing and take these genius ideas that obviously work for them. With all their money and
it doesn't mean we have to copy everything they do. We don't want to start putting fish and chips in burger boxes. But you can definitely pick off some of the best ideas. You know, like you just said, rather than, you know, letting the delivery drivers and all that lot come through the front, you just say, look, come round the back. Next time, if you want, you know, a little trick. Oh, the drivers never come to me. Okay, give them half price. Let them have a benefit of coming to Athena B on their, you know, rather than, you know, you're competing with everybody else then, aren't you? So if they do fancy fish and chips, at least they'll come to you because they're getting looked after. And I think someone said to me a while ago, I treat all of these drivers like a normal member of staff. I ask them if they want a drink. I ask them if they want something to eat. Now, that might change if you're in a very busy area and you see lots of different drivers. Obviously, that might change a little bit. But I guess in smaller areas, you'd be seeing the regular, you know, same old people, wouldn't you?
Exactly. I think I had a friend who he was in between jobs and he was waiting for his new job to start, and he was like, oh, do you know what, I'll just do a bit of Just Eat riding for a bit. And I got kind of a deep insight into how they operate, just sort of asking him questions and stuff. And you know, he was saying, oh, there's only like a couple of places that will let you go in there and sit down. It's like KFC or McDonald's, like you said. And he told me about, you know, they give you a discount and stuff. And it's kind of that thing. If you're looking for somewhere like warm and dry to sort of wait for the next order or whatever, it's like if you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. And my mate was eating McDonald's like every day. And he was like, oh, I didn't even think like why they had this little special area for us. But now you think about it, if he's getting at least a burger a day, and you know there's however many Just Eat drivers that go through, they just maximize every aspect of their business.
Yeah, and again, where would you go if you're one of those people? You're going to prioritize the places you get looked after, the place where it's dry in the wet, the place where they're friendly. You can sit down. You've been on your feet all day, on the seat all day.
Yeah,
you know you're going to go somewhere where you can just take a moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
I
if
think
it's
sorry,
go on. No, go on.
I was just saying because I think it's because it's such a new aspect of our business. Like, I don't know, I'm sure your dad's probably the same, but my mum, when we have a delivery driver come in, she has a relationship with everyone. Every driver she knows by name, she knows their kids, she knows whatever. They leave with, a can of Coke in their hand, a portion of chips or whatever. And if there's bad pies, a red mark across their face for the slap that she's getting. But the point is, she really has a connection with with those people. But because it's such a new thing, these drivers, and they're kind of sort of nameless, faceless people that come in with helmets and they pick up the food and leave. My mum's quite similar to the sort of thing you do. She looks after them. Oh, are you hungry? How you been? Oh, it's rainy today. I'm so sorry. Here's some chips or whatever. And I noticed that, if that driver comes in again and we're taking a little bit longer on an order, he's not cancelling and going to the next place. And say I make a mistake and I've given him the wrong order. I ring him up, oh, please come back, and we've got to switch out. They're just, a lot of the time it's the same drivers. And if you're not building connections and relationships with everyone in your business the right way, then you're the one losing out.
Yeah. On that note, mate, I'm really grateful for your time.
Hey, thanks, Del.
And you gave me loads of your time today. And thank you for your preparation. Genuinely, you've really given it some thought. And you've done really great. Thank you for your time, mate.
Mate, thank you very much, Stelios.
Yeah, and give my love to Mary.
I will do. I don't know how much she'll receive it. As long as there's no mushy pea seasoning involved, she'll receive it.
Definitely. I won't even sneak any in. I won't. I promise. All right, mate.
Take care.
Massive shout out to Matthew Konen for coming on the Sarah's podcast. To follow Athena B and what they are doing, just search them up on Instagram or Facebook, or go to our podcast notes on the podcast app and the links will be there. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends on social media or just message them. However, if you like it, then chances are they will too. To see what we've been up to and how any of our solutions can help you, visit theworldofsarahs.com. Don't forget, if you've got any suggestions for the podcast, or you want to, ask for us to get someone on as a guest, just email me at stelios@worldofsarahs.com.